So earlier today, I was doing some artwork, and then I was thinking about relaxing later and watching a movie, watching some TV, taking in some entertainment instead of just doing work, taking a break. I've been painting and just been doing a tremendous amount of work, and that's great. I'm very happy to do so. But when I was looking for entertainment, I found I didn't enjoy, or I wasn't interested in, and I love movies and I love television, but looking at that stuff didn't really satisfy my entertainment or my arts interests. Now, I grew up reading American comic books and going to a small comic book shop and buying back issues, buying trading cards, buying posters, and some of the stuff from that, some of the inspiration of those times is on the wall behind me. It's the Rocketeer, it's Todd McFarlane. And I guess I never realized what an intense affinity I have for that work. And so I got a sketchbook in the mail today, and I had been just considering having some fun in it. Nothing that's for one of these books, just something for me. And not too long ago, I ordered 2 hardcover editions of a manga called Berserk. And the thing that sort of hit me when I was sitting there trying to think of what I wanted to look at, for the first time in a long time, I wanted to look at sequential artwork. And what was interesting to me is there was this quality in American comic books that you almost can't find in the mainstream anymore, which is this exuberance, this passion, this detail, this rich world building. And that is what, for me, as a one-time, comic book artist, on a very small scale in the indie scene, that was the stuff that inspired me to want to paint, or I should say draw, pencil, ink, all of that kind of stuff. And when I was looking at this manga, I could see, and I've seen it before, but it was in this very particular case, how much that the sequential art form fills a need that film doesn't fill, that television doesn't fill, and that these projects are more than just a testing ground or a pilot episode for a film or TV show, but what I've always known is they're their own art form, where it's just this exuberant free expression, because comics and sequential art have always had this capacity to say things that you couldn't say in other art forms because they cost too much money. And when people spend a lot of money to produce something, they expect to have a say in it. So there becomes certain things that they don't want you to say, or certain work you don't want to make. Now, comics has always been the place where the history of superhero comics is written by immigrants coming to this country, by people trying to, tell amazing stories that entertain millions of people. And manga still does that. American comics do not, but manga still does that. And it just sort of struck me how nice it was to, for the first time in I don't know how many years, but for the first time in a long time, I felt compelled to entertain myself and inspire myself with a hard copy of a comic book, because that's what I needed. And I don't think, it's not like I just got these books, it's not like I just came to this idea, it's not like I've never bought a comic book before, but there was this feeling, certainly not the first time I bought manga, but there was this feeling that you get when you're in a space where you're just inspired by the artwork and just the sheer creativity. I don't even know that it's about plot or story as much as it's about whimsy and visuals and richness. Now, the story matters, But it's the fact that these artists are free to tell any kind of story they want to tell. And I thought to myself, you know what I think I'm going to do today just to unwind? I know this doesn't look like unwinding. I'm going to explore a story. I don't know what the story is. I don't know if it's the kind of story that anybody would want to buy or anyone would want to publish. And I don't know if I'm going to turn it into a giant comic book. I have a vision for a scenario. I have a vision for a scene that's going to take place on a page that I've been rolling around in my head for I don't know how long, just the last maybe month or so. Talked with a couple of my friends about it, and it's a story that I just wouldn't even know if there's a publisher for. But I just thought, as an act of independence and just as an artist, I needed to just get out this sketchbook and take this evening of downtime to not only look at a work of manga, not only look at this artwork, but to kind of respond to it by putting ink and brush to paper. And it just sort of dawned on me that, at least for now, we have freedom of speech. We have freedom of expression. And when I see manga, and I see Japanese comics and art in that field, it's kind of amazing to me that Japan has adopted and gained a better understanding of free expression in their manga work than we do in our illustration work and our comic work. And I find that a little bit troubling, but also I see that as a challenge. Let's make some great stuff. Let's just make work. That's what my art books are about. That's what I'm inspired to do. I'm going to make artwork that is about things that I find interesting, and I'm going to do it with passion, and I'm going to be inspired by it. And looking at manga, I think, was the first time, and I've seen some indie comics come out that are pretty interesting, but it's the first time I just saw this gigantic volume of somebody who was clearly passionate about this story. And I thought, I feel like working in black and white. I feel like working in the language of storytelling, the language of manga. And so I just started getting out my ink and doing this brushwork that I'm doing right now. And I wanted to show it to you guys, but also just share my thoughts on this incredible... It's funny, I always tell my students to say opportunity, but it really does. It's usually what fits. We have this incredible opportunity to make work totally free in this country. If we're going to fund it independently, if we're going to put it out there independently. And all we've got to do is make this stuff. All we've got to do is explore the stuff. And I don't know when that became so impossible in our comic book industry to do work that actually has, no pun intended for all the Berserk fans out there, that actually has some guts to it. But I just was kind of overcome with the love that I have for this art form and my frustration with the fact that it hadn't dawned on me how much I was missing what this art form brings. What sequential art brings that movies can't, nothing can. I mean, the panel layouts that you can do in a comic, the compositions you can do are not film, they're not animation, they're not single illustration. You can have things break panels, you can have things move in and out, but you have to be working in a time, and you have to be working with a mindset, probably more importantly a mindset than anything else. I don't think it was easier to make comics in the beginning than it is now. We have all this work to look at, to get inspiration from and information from. But you have to just have some courage when you're making your stuff and put it out there. And you have to you have to be willing to learn about storytelling, study great works of fiction, and realize how free your expression can be while still maintaining quality and some responsibility to the audience. And I think people see free expression and putting work out there that is all about whatever you were feeling in that moment that doesn't make any sense, and they confuse that with having respect for the audience and then writing a good story that is attempting to be cohesive and attempting to fill all of the needs that you need from a story and all of the needs you need from artwork. and then expressing something sincerely, but with some understanding of the audience and who you're talking to, which is essentially, what am I looking at? And drawing stuff and illustrating stuff to look like stuff and telling a story. Now, people can take or leave that story, but I look at manga and it looks like it's a real artistic risk. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that I see right now is faux risk. It's wow, I'm going to do something edgy. I'm going to do a comic book on a subject that everybody is doing a comic book on. And I don't know if I would ever think to write, or want to illustrate half of the stuff that I'm seeing in this manga. But this person clearly thought, without a doubt, I need to make this work. I'm passionate about this work, and found an enormous audience for it. And there's nothing in that book that a committee of people, a committee of bureaucrats would look at and say, hey, this is a good idea. In fact, it's pretty much in the rule book of things that you shouldn't do. Things you shouldn't do. Things that would exclude Oedipus Rex, Shakespeare. Some of the greatest works of Western civilization would be excluded by the sort of puritanical censorship that manga doesn't have to suffer through. Thank goodness. And that anime doesn't have to suffer through. And it's interesting to me, but you put a mature reader sticker on a book in manga, or even in American comics in some instances, and you sort of have to understand what you're going there to experience. You take responsibility for yourself, individual responsibility, one of those hallmarks of this country and this hallmarks of Western art and Western civilization. And I don't know why we've allowed our work to be, in the best way I could put it, is so much of art I see right now is, and not all of it, but so much of it is so staid. That's the best way I could put it. It's so watered down. It's so beige. It's so vanilla. And there's no flavor to it. It's almost like a simulation of something that would have flavor. Everything is edgy within this sort of edgy within the perimeters of what's acceptable, which is not edgy at all. Which is essentially just approved by the collective, secular moralizers, perhaps we'll call it that. And it does nothing for the audience. It does nothing for the art. I can't imagine it does anything for the artist who creates it. I can't. Because it's these artists are producing hundreds of pages of art. I'm wrapping up my second art book, and it's my second art book in a year. And I'm having the time of my life. There's so much detail. If you love something, you can't stop doing it. You're not waiting around for someone to pay you to do it. And that's what this is for. This is not this is not about making money. This work that you're seeing right here, I'm just doing this because I read some work that I loved. I've had a story kicking around in my head, and I wanted to see what it would look like. I don't know where it's going, but I have to do this. And I think that can't be a foreign concept to us. Why am I doing this? What is this for? What's the reward going to be? The reward is going to be that you get to see it and you need to do it. That's what the reward is. And it's not about getting your share of success or whatever the heck that means, as if there's some collective pot. It's about putting yourself out there, putting your work out there with some kind of passion because you care about it. That's it. That you care about it. That's the reason to do anything. And yes, you should be trying to make money, but if it doesn't make money, and if people aren't interested in it, maybe you should sort of say to yourself, that's information, that's gold. Oh, I can use this to adjust my strategy. Manga is a cutthroat field, and I am sure it is not easy to be a manga artist. At all. But they just do it. They work. They suck it up. But I sat down and I said to myself, I need to see this thing. I need to see what this thing is about, and I need to explore it. And that's what I ordered the sketchbook for. This is not a project I'm pitching. This isn't any of that stuff. This is just a break, and this is what it's about when you're an artist. It's about needing to make work, being inspired by other artists. I am grateful for every artist I have surrounding me because their work is like fuel. It's like oxygen for me. And I just wanted to record a short video showing what I do for downtime. This is what I do for downtime. I'm working on these giant pieces, trying to make them as amazing as I can for the fans who backed my book on Indiegogo. And I'm going to be doing head sketches. I'm going to be putting all this labor into it, mailing. I'm looking forward to that labor. It's going to be great. But I never forget for a minute the YouTubers that I've gotten to meet and who it's amazing. We chat, back and forth, and it's a wonderful community. But also the artists that I meet out in the world, and some of them are YouTubers who just create amazing stuff that inspires and fuels me. So this is a reaction to my passion for manga. That's what this is. I didn't grow up on manga. I saw it when I got older. I saw this work, but I'm not someone who was going and reading manga when I was a kid. But I know quality when I see it, and I know vitality when I see it, and I know when something is lifeless. I know when something is aesthetic, it wakes you up, it inspires you, and I know when something is anesthetic, and it just puts you to sleep. It's a didactic lecture that, like this probably, that puts you to sleep. And I just thought to myself, and I wanted to kind of scream in brush and ink on the page my enthusiasm for looking at this work. And that's where I am right now. That's where I am. So I just, this is where my head's at, and this is what I've been working on. And it's been a real fun break from what I'm doing to explore the joys of just using ink and a white gel pen to play around with the idea of setting and story and detail and immaculate reality and richness. That is what the joy of this has been. So anyway, those are my thoughts on manga. That's my gratitude for the art form and the artists who I've been looking at. And looking forward to wherever this journey takes me with my artwork. I just turned 44 this week. Had a lot of gratitude on my mind. A lot of gratitude for artists and for friends and for people who've been there for me, who've lifted me up, especially my wife and my kids, and my brother Nick Janeshag, my brother Arvin Bautista, Will Podorf, all of these artists brothers, my YouTuber brothers, the Choice Voice. That's what this is about for me, and that's what's so fun. So anyway, like and subscribe, get the word out about this channel, because I want to do more of this stuff. I think it's important to just put this stuff out there and hopefully put some fuel into the conversation, but definitely just to make some work. So take care, everybody. Have a good evening or a good morning, depending on when you see this, and I'll have some more content for you soon. Stay gold.